prime thing is you have to win.
Ill intent, violence, physicality, pain. Enough is enough.
All right, welcome back to the Just Win podcast. I'm Ted Wynn. That's Tashan Reed. It's Vic Tafer. And today we are going to preview the Bengals game. And last week they lost to the Chiefs. This week they're going to be playing another pretty good offense in the Bengals. But before we get into the preview, let's talk about some topics. I know you guys got to talk to the coordinators this week. You got to talk to AP. And you got to ask him, is Luke Getsy going to remain place in offensive coordinator? And what do you say?
Yeah, sticking with him. I mean, I asked Pierce on Wednesday, and he said he feels comfortable moving forward with Getsy as offensive coordinator and play caller. He had signaled that. I mean, even immediately after the game on Sunday, after they lost to the Chiefs, he was saying, he's not going to get into play calling. He said the same thing Monday, and so wasn't a surprise, but I know it's something that's upsetting a pretty significant section of the fan base right now. But again, as we talked about, like I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make if you do make a play caller change, given their offensive personnel issues as a result of injuries and also just how they built the roster this offseason. Like if it's Joe Philbin or Rich Scarangelo or anybody else calling plays, I don't really think they have the makings of a good offense this year. And so, while I understand fans being upset about it, I don't really think there's much upside to changing the play caller at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure I can handle another 9 weeks of Luke Getsy talk on social media and on the reporters. And I just clearly the offense stinks. I mean, but I'm not is that all on Luke. I mean, we talked about this before. Gardner's got 11 turnovers, most in the league. They can't run the ball. Offensive line wasn't very good. Now they're kind of banged up. So I don't know what difference it would make. I know fans want change. But I think he's kind of. I guess the hope is that for the Raiders, and the coaches have said this, and so the players, you kind of keep working at it. You hope it clicks at some point. You hope the running game takes hold, and you hope that Zamir White finds his footing and can at least complement Madison as far as the running game goes. I think you need both guys. I think I'm not sure Madison can kind of turn this around by himself. The run game issues. So you would hope Zamir can kind of go back to the guy he was last year. I don't know if that's possible or not, but that's the hope. And I think the O-line, you hope the guys, the young guys are playing, the Glaze and Powers Johnson, the more they play, the better they get. And that's just the hope. I mean, you can't do much else at this point than hope. And then I'm sure some of your fans are happy with losing and kind of getting a higher draft pick. So I think those are the two ways you can look at this game and this season. But this week's a winnable game. I know that's the word we always, it's our catchphrase in this thing. But
I said we can't say that word anymore.
I didn't say they're going to win. I didn't say they're going to win the bowl. I'm like, so I just think the Bengals clearly have some issues defensively. But we'll get into that game later on. But I just think that I just can't handle much more Luke Getsy talk. I'm kind of at my end of my rope with that one.
All right. Well, before we officially end the Luke Getsy talk, I will say a few issues with the play calling from last week, and some of this might be on Antonio Pierce kind of instructing Getsy to be more conservative. And we all know the run pass sequence that the Raiders are in love with, and doesn't work out very well. But I will say the lack of a blitz plan against Spags was kind of telling, but maybe some of that is execution and some of that's on Minshew to be able to get the offense into the right protection. I don't know how much power he's given at the line of scrimmage. But there were a few play calls that are objectively bad, like situationally bad. Like, for example, the first play they ran when they got the ball back with 150 remaining in the first half was kind of this tap pass, which is essentially like a fly sweep from the shotgun. It was to Jakobi Meyers for a 0-yard gain. And you don't run that play. You usually run that type of play in running situations because you're hoping that the end squeezes down with the tackle and then you can just get a quick one outside on him. But what happens if you're in a passing situation is the end goes straight up field. And the end on that play was Chris Jones. You leave the end unblocked on that play on purpose. It was Chris Jones. Chris Jones ran upfield to pass rush, and he just ran right into Jakobi Meyers for a 0-yard gain. So situationally, I thought that was a bad pass rush. And in the goal line, and this has been a situation that has came up multiple times starting in week 1, where they have a wide receiver line up close to the box, and they'll ask the wide receivers to cut off a defensive lineman or a linebacker. And it was Trey Tucker on one play. Trey Tucker couldn't cut off Drew Tranquil. Drew Tranquil got into the line of scrimmage and stopped the play for no gain. And then a couple plays later, they asked Jakobi Meyers to do the same thing. And I think it was Drew Tranquil again, blew right by him, stopped the play for a 0-yard gain. And then on 3rd and 6, they fake a bubble screen to try to get the defense to bite on a bubble screen and throw over. But they're not going to do that on a 3rd and 6, and that's exactly the defense just sat back and nobody was open. So it's play calls like that where I Antonio Pierce admitted too. He said after during the week that the play calling has to get better, and I think those examples are just clear examples that are very black and white. Like you can't call these plays in these situations, and it happened, and they failed.
Yeah, I would say like on the blitz issue in the second half, because I asked him about that today, and Getsy said, part of it was, the Chiefs just sending, more, you know, outnumbering them. It wasn't enough a matter of them picking up the blitz because they didn't have enough blockers to pick them up. It was more so doing a better job of hitting the hot route and getting the ball out quickly, which, we've talked about. Minshew has a tendency to hold on to the ball in some of those situations. And then some of them, he just said it was just flat out missed assignments. I don't think he named the players specifically, but he mentioned there's some young players in there, so you can kind of, read between the lines. But they have had a lot of shuffling on the offensive line, a lot of guys moving around both before games and in games. And so the blitz stuff, I think, is just a mix of miscommunication, misassignment, and then also just Minshew being Minshew. Like, obviously, they know that the Chiefs are going to blitz a lot. You know that the Bengals are going to blitz a lot this week, so it's not like they aren't talking about it, but you still got to go out there and execute. And, part of that is always going to be on players, but it's also a coaching point. It's like, if guys keep fucking up on the details and making these mistakes, like that's where you come into play and teach them how to get right. And so I think there's blame on both sides when it comes to that. And even with the play calling, like I'm sure some of these play calls that we think are bad because they don't work. Like if a guy makes a block here or there, or makes the right cut in the goal line situation, for example, Vic was talking about. Looked like Alexander Madison had a wide open hole to score a touchdown on one of those 3 carries, and he just didn't hit it. I mean, that's not really on the play caller or the offensive line there, but it's always a mix of both, right? But naturally, when a unit is struggling, we tend to say fire the coordinator first, and then after it stays the same, then we just kind of keep talking in circles. But you know, there's blame on both sides for sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying fire Luke Getsy. I don't know if there's anybody better on the staff, but these are issues. Like, yeah, guys aren't blocking, but when you have Trey Tucker blocking a linebacker, it's not. You're not putting your guys in the best position to win there.
Trey Tucker's a number 2 receiver, though. I don't mean that's not. I mean, I don't know who else would have. What other receiver would you have blocking there? Bringing.
I have the tight end in there, and on the goal line, blocking the box. Like I wouldn't have Trey Tucker there.
As far as the blitzes go, like I think when a better team blitzes a worse team, usually the results are going to be in favor of the better team. I think it's Chiefs. I mean, are clearly one of the better defenses in the league. I think people kind of are glossing over that. So I think, and again, I don't know if this personnel is really a lot more to be had out of some of these packages, but yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I think. Yeah, as the year goes on, I'm sure this topic won't go away. And if the losses keep piling up, there's going to be a scapegoat. There always is, and it is going to be Luke Getsy. I mean, that seems to be the way this is going. But at this point, you got to just hope that if you're him and you're Antonio Pierce and the players, you got to hope that practice and keeping at it. You make a crack and you crack through at some point. And that's the only hope at this point for these guys.
Yeah, and like I said, I do commend him for trying different things. He's trying to be creative, adding a lot of different concepts and that sort of deal. It's just the details, and details matter.
I was going to say, Pierce kind of had an interesting quote on Wednesday. I mean, he was asked about why he's sticking with Getsy as offense play caller, and it was like at the end of it, he kind of, I don't think he meant it this way, but he was like saying, he's coordinator, so he's the fall guy. Kind of was the wording on that one. So
Whoa!
I think that got some people, thinking about some things there. So, like Vic said, like realistically, like if the offense is bad for the rest of the season and they keep losing, like somebody's going to get fired. So it wouldn't be shocking.
All right, let's move on to the offensive line. There's going to be some shuffling. Andre James didn't practice again today. So, any update on the injury front?
I was going to say if he can't go, it'd be Powers Johnson again at center. I think they liked what he did last week in the short span of snaps. He hadn't practiced in a long time, so I think at this point, if Andre still hasn't practiced, I don't think it's a good sign for him this Sunday. But he's a tough guy. You never know. We'll see tomorrow. But I would think that at this point, things definitely seem to be pointing in that direction where it's going to be Powers Powers Johnson on Sunday at center.
Yeah, Dylan Parham started practicing again this week. He's been limited with a foot injury, but it looks like if he can, you would imagine if he's able to take a next step tomorrow, Friday, and get to full, or even if he is still limited, he might be able to give it a go. I think it'd be interesting to see if he, stays at right guard or switches to left guard. Just with Jordan Meredith kind of coming in and I think playing pretty well at right guard. I wonder if they, think he's better off staying there or moving Parham back to left guard. So I think there's some questions about it, how exactly that interior offensive line is going to shake out, assuming that James isn't going to play. So that would be something that's interesting to watch in this game. And they've had a lot of offensive line shuffling this season. Part of it's due to injury, but also part of it's due to performance. And particularly when you got some young guys in the line that can cause some issues. So be interesting to see like whatever the combination is, how Jackson Powers Johnson, settles into that role at center. I mean, obviously that was his best position in college, so he's used to playing there. But this is the NFL, it's the next level. So how does he handle communication and working alongside some new guys going to get up against this Bengals defensive front that blitzes very often? I'm sure they're going to try to manipulate him being a rookie center. So I think that how that all shakes out will be something that's pretty key to this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think preferably for me, I'd like to keep Jackson Powers Johnson at guard. I think you see the flashes, the physical dominance, but he also has a lot of rookie moments, and he missed all of training camp, and I think he just needs to be in one position, and he needs to really get used to it. I feel like center it takes a lot more mental work, and he's already kind of swimming, which he did have he had some good reps, and I know like Twitter is going crazy over those like 4 or 5 reps, but it's very short sample size. So going into a
I mean,
game having was
I
that
think most people coming out of college had him playing center at the next level. So I mean, I think that's his best position probably long term. In terms of like I know Brugler, like he was his number one center and then he was All American player at center last year. So I think that might be his
yeah,
best spot.
but
I'm not saying
yeah,
permanently, but you know.
but if you want to move him to center permanently, then move him there, move him there, and leave him there. But like if it's just an injury thing, I'd rather leave him a guard. And I think I asked you, Tashan, like these guards had multiple guards had reps at center during the offseason, right?
Yeah, I mean Parham can also play center and we've seen him do that before. But I think also he's coming off a foot injury. So like, I think that could probably factor into who they use where as well. So I just think it kind of be like a tough transition to ask for Parham coming off an injury to go over and bump over the center. So I think that's probably part of the math too.
The Raiders don't really know yet what Powers Jackson's future is going to be. Where they don't have a spot where he's locked in at. They're kind of open to both, so why not give him a try at the spot and see how it goes? But and obviously, Andre James is signed for another year or two, so I mean that's all fluid. But I just think the Raiders kind of they think they have a really good player. You said he's had flashes. He's had really good moments at guard and some really bad moments. He had a lot of penalties. So, and now I think he's pretty comfortable in center. He said that, so he can kind of jump back and forth. I think it's a huge thing for him to do that. So I think at this point, you see how it goes.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, the best five are Miller, Glaze, Jackson Powers Johnson, Parham, and Meredith. So if you could find a way to get those five on the field, then I think that's probably your best combination moving forward. Um, but let's move on to the next topic. Trade deadline is coming Tuesday. Any more Raiders you foresee being on the trade market?
Not really. I mean, like this roster isn't super packed out with talent as we've seen, but they do have some interesting players that I'm sure teams will be interested in. Like the big one, obviously Max Crosby. Like they're not trading him. Like he's off the table. So will the Lions call about him? Maybe, but I just don't see the Raiders doing anything there. They have a few other players, particularly guys on expiring deals that come to mind that maybe teams could be interested in. Maybe a Robert Spillane, Nate Hobbs, um, Trayvon Merrick, guys that's not, under the contract multiple years like Jakobi Meyers or Colton Miller as well. But I just don't see a team throwing out a crazy offer for those players. And for the Raiders, I don't know if an extra fifth or sixth round pick is worth losing a good player that you could potentially use moving forward. Because I don't think this is like a complete tear down type of situation, or we're just trying to hit the hard reset button and start from scratch next season. Like I do think they believe that they have a path to competing next year in some capacity. And so if that's the case, then it doesn't make sense to just do a complete fire sale. And then on the other side of it, I mean, sitting at 2-6, most likely 2-7 after this week, like it doesn't really make sense to trade for anybody. But I also don't think they're really in a position to be sellers either.
Yeah, I wonder if teams would trade or would inquire about Adam Butler. I mean, he's on a 1 year deal. He's playing at a high level, and a lot of the contending teams could definitely use some interior pass rush. So,
I mean, there was no interest in him in the offseason. He was there to be had for nothing, and he didn't get much of a lot of teams back then. So I'm not sure that it's moved to needle not much more now. I just think going back to the overall thing, I think this time of year, people like, are they buyers, are they sellers? And I think the Raiders are neither. They're kind of more of a stamp pad mode. We have a story coming out tomorrow morning about that whole thing. I just think that, I think Tom Telesco, if you call him and you make an offer, he's going to listen. And I think you have to really knock him over, do something. But I think he's open to it. I still don't know if he sees a reason to at this point. I think, like we talked about, they want some guys back next year. What would you get back? I'm not sure there are that many players that really have people really hot and bothered about getting right now if you're another team. So we'll see how it goes. But I think we both expect him to kind of stand pat on Tuesday.
yeah, I loved Mark Davis's text message or email or whatever it was to Adam Schefter that he was adamant he will not trade Max Crosby before or after the deadline, and he capitalized each first letter in each word, just to make sure that he's not going to
That's
do it.
that's how Mark texts everything. He's an interesting texter, but the first letter of every word is always capitalized. I don't know why, but
That takes some
it
effort to
is.
do. That's
Yeah, man, it's intentional with it.
All right. Well, let's talk about injuries. We talked about the offensive line injuries. Any other injuries on both sides of the ball that we should know about?
Yeah, Robert Spillane didn't practice today due to a knee injury. He suffered that, like, I think it was the first drive of the Chiefs game. He ended up coming back in and finishing the game. He didn't really miss, I don't think he missed any snaps, actually, or might have missed a couple snaps. Um, but Spillane didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. So he's one of those guys where you figure he's like one of those Max Crosby types and he's going to try to push through it and play regardless. But it is something to monitor nonetheless. Besides him, Zamir White, he was limited due to a quad injury on Wednesday and didn't practice Thursday. So see if he's able to get back out there. I know he hasn't been starting or playing much, but as we mentioned, Madison, it seems like he needs some help there, even if he's going to remain the starter moving forward. So that could be significant. And Harrison Bryant, he didn't play last week, but he's limited with an elbow injury. So see about his status. Over on the Bengals side, they might be without a couple starters. Left tackle Orlando Brown and receiver T. Higgins didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. And yeah, could be a pretty big deal. I mean, their offense is good, but losing your left tackle and wide receiver too could take them down a peg. And then Sam Hubbard, defensive end, Charlie Jones, receiver, and Geno Stone, safety are all limited. So Bengals might be without a couple key pieces, and that might help level the playing field a little bit for the Raiders.
All right. So let's get into our game preview. What are you guys watching for when the Raiders have the ball?
Just I think more progress, more upward trending from Gardner Minshew. I thought he actually wasn't bad last week. I thought it was probably one of his better games. I think they need to get the ball, spread out, different guys. I think clearly the Chiefs can't. I know everyone here denies it when you ask the coaches about it, but clearly they took away Brock Bowers for 2.5 quarters. So I think you got to make them pay somewhere else that teams do that. So I think you need to see more of jet sweeps or whatever, or Gardner taking shots down the field at Trey Tucker. That seemed to be a combination that worked in the past. They haven't really taken any shots deep recently, but yeah, I think Gardner definitely. I think he was better last week, and we'll see if he can keep it up and not throw any interceptions.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
mine is seeing how this kind of revamped offensive line holds up against the Bengals and a pretty aggressive defense. It's not like they haven't blitzed at an insane rate this season. It's more situational, but they are pretty exotic and mix up things pretty often. So I think them having another new offensive line combination with the rookie center in there, I think that's really going to be the big factor whether this offense is able to have some success or not because as much as we talk about Luke Getsy and Gardner Minshew, like if they can't run, it's not just that they can't run block. Like they're literally like one of the worst run blocking teams that has ever existed, or at least since 2000. I wrote a story earlier this year, or earlier this week. This had the second worst success rate since 2000, since True Media has been checking the statistic, and so it's like historically bad right now. And I just don't know, like when you're running the ball that poorly like this Gardner Minshew, he's not throwing 50 times a game. Like, it's not a recipe for success with him as your quarterback, especially with these receiving weapons. It's not like they're loaded outside of Brock Bowers. And so I think that offensive line, does this new combination work and are they able to hold up? I think that's really the key to the game for the offense.
Yeah, I think the Bengals defense is the worst run defense in NFL as far as efficiency, but as we know, the Raiders are the worst team offensively in rushing success rate. So it's going to be a battle of I don't even know what to call this battle, but it's. I mean, if the Raiders can't run the ball on this defense, they're not going to be able to run the ball on any defense. So this is kind of a get right game for the run game.
It's about, they played some bad Russian defenses this year,
Yeah,
whether it was the Panthers or the
this is the
Rams.
worst.
And
This is the
Yeah,
worst one.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But I think if they can't turn that around, then they're not going to have much success.
Yeah, passing wise, they like to play a lot of cover two. They want to they know that they don't have great defensive backs, and they're just trying to contain and not give up explosive pass plays. So I think Gardner Minshew did a better job of just taking those quick passes when they were there last week against the Chiefs. So that should continue and just be patient against this pass defense. I think Brock Bowers should have a big game against these zones. Um, so and they'll probably overcorrect too and make sure that Bowers gets a ton of targets in this game. So I think you just methodically move down the field. I don't know if this offense has potential to get any explosive pass plays, but again, against this type of defense, just take what they give you, go downfield. Hopefully, you can run the ball with a little bit more efficiency than you have. And yeah, this is a very bad defense. So if you have any chance of winning this game, you have to be able to keep this game high scoring. And yeah, this can't be this can't be a game. You're not going to win this game scoring under 23 points. All right, what are we watching? Oh wait, what was that?
So it's very specific.
23 was
And you
a
got your,
nice number.
yeah, I like it.
I feel like that's the Raiders' average. Is it or
23?
no?
It's not that. They
That's a
wish.
little bit high, but
It's not 23.
Okay, they have to go way over that then. All
yeah.
right, what to watch? What are we watching when the Bengals have the ball?
Well, I was liking that matchup. I know T. Higgins missed practice again today. I don't know if he's going to play or not. I think he probably will, but there's also the contract thing. He might want to get traded. Who knows? But if he does play, I thought that was been a nice matchup. Him and Jacorian Bennett. I think Jacorian Bennett's had some nice success this year, but I wouldn't say he's covered anybody of the caliber of T. Higgins. So I think that would definitely be a great test for him. So I'm looking for that matchup, and if T. Higgins plays.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the defense was pretty good last week against the Chiefs. I know, like, you look at the box score, it's like they gave up a good amount of points, but that was really partly because of the offense putting them in bad situations. And so kind of seeing are they able to contain Joe Burrow in his passing game? I mean, even without Higgins, they're pretty explosive just because of how good Jamar Chase is. And just seeing, with that aggressive approach that Patrick Graham's been using, blitzing pretty often, using five-man fronts pretty often. This Bengals offensive line, like the pressure rate and all that stuff looks good, but I think a lot of that is because of Burrow getting the ball out pretty quickly. So seeing if the Raiders can rattle Burrow and force some turnovers of their own for once. I know they had the pick last week with Merritt getting that tip pass from Mahomes, but for the most part, it's been the offense turning the ball over a lot, and the Bengals and the defense not really creating many of their own. And so seeing if they're able to swing the game with this one, kind of what we talked about last week, but they can force couple of turnovers out of Burrow, whether that's picking them off or getting after them and having a strip sack or two. Um, I think that's what I'm be looking for the defense, kind of those game changing plays that makes it a little bit easier on the offense that really seem to be pretty limited at this point.
I thought it was interesting that Patrick Graham's been in the league a long time. He said today that this is his first time going against Joe Burrow, and watching him on film this week, he's like, "Wow, this guy's really good." And kind of like he also joked that they talked about Halloween costumes today. He said if someone was wearing a Joe Burrow costume, he'd be pretty scared today. So I thought that was kind of funny. But that's clearly Joe is one of the better quarterbacks, one of the top three quarterbacks in the league, I'd say. I mean, maybe top five, I guess. But still an elite thrower of the ball. So you got to get some pressure, not just Max Crosby. But I know Terry Wilson had a sack last week, and maybe he's coming on. That'd be nice. But you need some pressure on him to kind of force some mistakes, or else you're going to be in for a long day.
Yeah, and I totally get where Patrick Graham is coming from because when I was watching the game against the Eagles, I was just, I was blown away. I was like, man, this guy is playing at a really, really high level right now. I mean, like if he wants to, he could play the quick game, get rid of the ball accurately, put the ball in spots where guys could run after the catch. He could extend plays. I mean, he extended he converted on a 3rd and 22 last week where he was able to get away from pass rushers, and then one of the zone defenders came up to get him, and he threw the ball right over their heads to convert. Uh, he started the season a little slow coming off his injury, but he's gotten back to being the Joe Burrow that is an MVP candidate, a guy that could take his team deep into playoffs. Um, Obviously, this offense is a lot different without T. Higgins. It's not like they have a ton of depth outside of their top two playmakers, but obviously those guys are both elite. So it'll be a big deal if T. Higgins can play or not. Because if T. Higgins can't play, then you could just put all your attention onto Jamar Chase, and Chase is obviously a top 3 type of receiver in this league, and they're doing a good job of moving him around. He's playing in the slot more. They're finding ways to get him the ball underneath so he can run after the catch. And man, he is dangerous with the ball in his hands. So yeah, Burrow's playing at a really high level right now. You have to find a way to make him try to hold the ball though. I think he's at his best when he could just go quick game and get the ball out accurately. Um, but again, he can extend too. But you have to try to get him down for a sack when you can. His worst games are when he does try to do too much and he ends up taking a lot of sacks. And you know, I think you want to try to bait him into one of those types of games. All right, so what are we looking at as far as matchups?
It feels like whoever with Higgins, I mean, I guess if Higgins plays, that changes the math. But with it looking like he's at least going to probably be questionable to doubtful to play, I'll just say Jamar Chase versus whoever. The Raiders don't seem to be a team that locks in their cornerbacks on one guy and they fall in the entire game. So Chase is most likely going to see multiple guys. But I think that's, I mean, it's really the key for the defense because outside of him, I mean, the Bengals don't really have a ton of scary weapons, and they also haven't been able to run the ball very well this season either. So I think they can do a good job containing Chase. That could give them a chance to slow up this Bengals offense. And so whether that's Jack Jones, Jacorian Bennett, Nate Hobbs, whoever has that matchup, and I'm sure they're going to be sending help his way. I know that the Bengals are a little bit of a, not a little bit, they are a dangerous team to go single high against. But if Higgins isn't out there, it's not like you have a guy on the other side of the field that you worry about. So if send that extra safety help over to Chase, maybe you can bottle him up and keep him from having a big game in this one.
Vic?
Like I mentioned, the Higgins a better matchup, but also like Trayvon Merrick's playing really well. I think in the box, and he's get him going there, get some more blitzes, maybe some pressure from him. But I think he's kind of shown his upside a little bit. He's also in the contract year, so it's good for him. He's making some money for himself, but clearly, I think to kind of build off what he's doing and be a physical guy who can kind of make plays in the box and also make some get some pressure on Burrow.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna watch out for Tyree Wilson against the Bengals interior. I thought he had his best game against. I mean, honestly, he probably looked the best he's looked in the league against the Chiefs, who have a very physical interior. Um, and he's the thing with him is he's still technique wise and get off wise very inconsistent. But man, you're seeing these dominant flashes, and he's like not even getting his hands in the right place. He's not getting his arms extended, but he's like knocking guys back and getting pressure. And I think he's getting more confident. Obviously, you need the technique and everything to really hone in and be cleaner and be more consistent for him to consistently make an impact on the game. But we're seeing these flashes against good players, and like we talked about. You're going to have to pressure Burrow, and I think interior pressure is always the best way against quarterbacks like him. So um, Tyree will play outside a little bit, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him rush inside a lot. And the Bengals have struggled inside. So yeah, my matchup to watch out for is Tyree against this Bengals interior. All right, let's get into X factors.
I think for me, I mean, it's not like he's. I know X Factors usually do guys who aren't big names, but I think Max Crosby's the one for this one. I mean, the Bengals, as I mentioned, the offensive line hasn't been good. Old friend Trent Brown is on injured reserve, so they have a backup right tackle in right now, and then Orlando Brown, as I mentioned, the left tackle looks like he might be doubtful to play in this one. So they could have two backup tackles coming in this one, and I think Max is starting to finally be like 100% after the high was sprain back in week 2, and he's had a good season. Like I think he had 6.5 sacks, and he's still been one of the best edge rushers in the league. But we haven't seen him have one of those just kind of takeover games in a minute. And so I think this could be one where if he has 2 or 3 sacks and a few tackles for loss and kind of wrecks the game, I think that could help Sunday for the Raiders. And so I'm gonna go with Max.
Quick question, just a theoretical question. Can your best player be an X factor?
I think so.
How do you
Let's
define
look up the
X factor?
definition.
What
Look up
what,
the
what do we think
definition
here?
of X Factor.
Like the extra factor that you don't expect. I mean, I could be wrong. That's why I always thought like the
No,
extra, like
you're right.
the
I just never
Uh,
really thought about it.
I just Google it. A variable in a given situation that could have the most significant impact on the outcome.
okay, but I'd argue Max Crosby's not a variable. How about that? Max Crosby's a constant.
Well,
Oh,
everybody's a variable,
Well,
in
not
a
Max
way.
Crosby,
The
but
other
maybe not.
definition is a noteworthy special
Hey
talent
man,
or quality. Hey,
yeah,
I was just saying,
this is
it
some
sounds like a bit.
quality podcasting right
You
here.
picked the fucking
We're
you picked
debating.
the
That's my
quarterback
fault.
the first weeks
It's
of the
totally my
season.
fault. It's
Every
my
week
fault.
it was Gardner Minshew.
Gardner Minshew X Factor. Nah, that's why I asked. I didn't know. Now I know. I was educated, but my X Factor will be
He's over here
I,
stalling because you don't have one.
I was, and I didn't stall long enough, man. You came back with the answer too quick. I need more time. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Desmond Ritter with the run
oh
option
my god!
package. We're gonna
Hey
do a run
man,
option play, and he'll bust one for a 13-yard gain on 3rd and 6. Be a huge play.
All right,
he's
my
also
X
like something.
factor. I'm gonna say the Raiders' offensive line. I mean, they have to be able to run the ball against this front, and I was gonna say Alexander Madison, but no, 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 no. It's this is gonna be on the offensive line. They got to make some holes, and whoever's playing running back is gonna should be able to have a pretty good day against this front. And if they can't do that, they're not going to win this game. I don't think Gardner Minshew is going to come out and pass for 300 against this defense, even though it's not that great. I think this is a game where you're going to have to rush for at least 120.
120.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I like these numbers, man. 23 points, 120 yards. Yeah,
120.
definitely
yeah, yeah.
strict bars. I like it.
All right, let's get into predictions. More numbers.
Predictions. How
More
we did
numbers.
last
All
week?
right.
We all had the Chiefs right last week, right? Yeah,
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 yeah.
we
So
all
the
were right.
jinx, the reverse jinx didn't work last week,
Reverse chick.
sadly,
Sorry, Raider
but
fans, we tried.
it
I'll
almost
go
did.
first.
Almost did.
I'll go first. I got the what's my score? I'll go with the Bengals 30-20. That sounds good. I just think I think the Raiders are like most of these games in the last month or so. They'll they'll hang around. I think their defense has got enough pride, and I think they'll definitely play tough, and it won't be easy for the Bengals at first. But I just think the better team will kind of wear them down. That's been the case in the past. I think they're going to pull away late. So I got 30-20 Bengals.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Bengals 27, Raiders 23. I do think it ends up being a
You
fairly
see,
competitive
23.
game. Yeah, they
Oh, it's a
scored it,
number.
not
That's
over. Yeah,
yeah, so it's
yeah.
124,
You
but
said
23.
over 23.
I
Yeah,
got you.
goodness, they're under. But
Well done.
yeah, I think this Bengals defense is bad enough to where Raiders should be able to have a little bit of success, but I just think ultimately, I mean, they have Joe Burrow. When it comes to clutch time, I'm going to roll with the team with a better quarterback, especially with him being at home. So I think the Bengals pull it out.
Yeah, I got Bengals 27, Raiders 20. The defense is going to play hard. They're going to make some plays, but I think ultimately Burrow is going to be able to get them to move the ball. And offensively, I think they'll be able to move the ball, but I think they kind of falter out in the red zone. The red zone play calling has just been atrocious. So I think when they
Yeah.
get there, they'll kind of sputter out, and that'll end up being the difference in the game.
I mean, atrocious. Like 2 weeks ago, he tried to throw the ball every time and it didn't work. And I tried to run the ball every time. And what's he supposed to do? I mean, he's tried both ways. I mean, what's the
I
magic
feel like
ticket
you
answer for Luke Getsy? What would you have called in the red zone there?
could have mixed it up a little bit.
Yeah, run a play action on second down or something. I mean,
Uh,
geez. I know I wouldn't have Trey Tucker try to block an inside linebacker. That's for
Man,
sure.
if it had worked, you'd be like, what a great call, man. Never saw it coming. They were surprised. Genius call. But
But
it's tough out there, man. It's tough in these streets for offensive coordinators on Raiders teams.
all right, let's get into fan questions.
Here we go.
Stephen Law 75 asks, "What do you guys see as a reason for the lack of success running? Is it more scheme, play design, or execution? We seem to have more talent than we're putting on display."
Do you though? Really? I don't know if that's true, but I just think it's a combination. We talked about this. I think it's a combination. I think the play calling has not been great. The blocking has not been great. And a lot of cases, the running has not been great as far as hitting the right hole or not waiting, not being patient enough for things to develop. If you're running back, I think both Zamir and Alexander have struggled at times, especially Zamir. So I think it's a combination of all three things.
Yeah, I agree. There's times when the line blocks well and the running back doesn't see the hole. There's times when guys get blown back. There's just kind of bad play calling, like we talked about with the receivers trying to block in the box. So it's a combination of things. We'll see if they can put it together against the Bengals. All right, next question by Breshlow. It,
Breslow,
if you had to pick one player that Telesco trades before the deadline, who would it be? The only winnable game I see on the rest of the schedule is Saints and Jags. Agree? And if so, does only 4 wins get them a top 3 pick? Damn, you got his money's worth in that question.
that wasn't a
yeah,
question. That was like an essay.
yeah. I'll go with the first one. If I had to pick a player, Jakobi Meyers, like he's probably, I guess, the most attractive trade piece that they have right now, outside of, in terms of one that they would realistically trade. But even then, it's like, I don't know, looking ahead to next year, like, you got to have some other pass catchers on the roster, right? And so I really don't think there's somebody that makes sense in terms of trading on the roster in terms of what you would get back for the return outside of Max Crosby, but that's not happening. So I don't see them trading anybody. I could be proven wrong. In terms of winnable games on the schedule, nah, man, the Raiders, damn near every game is winnable with this team, but every game is also losable. So,
Every game is winnable. Put that
yeah,
on the
yeah.
podcast thing. Every game is
Yeah.
winnable.
In terms of,
Uh,
for the last one, your win count, 4 wins, get them a top 3 pick. Like it might not this year. There's some pretty shitty teams out there, man. So four wins, you might be on the outside looking into the top 3.
That's a lot of 2-win teams, right?
yeah. I also we talked about this. That I don't think they're gonna make a trade, but I guess if the one guy I could think of that maybe I'll go with Thayer Munford, a guy whose tackles are always in demand. I think, and if you're the Raiders, maybe you're kind of going with Glaze and Miller, and Thayer's a good swing tackle. Maybe some team thinks he's a possible starter. You might get a fifth round pick. Who knows? But again, that's just a wild grab an answer. And then I think there's more winnable games than that. I think the Broncos, the next home game is the Broncos. Like they could have beat the Broncos in Denver. Things kind of went off, off script after the bad pick six, but they're winning that game pretty easily at that point. I don't think Denver's that good by any means, so I think the next home game is definitely winnable.
Yeah, Munford's a good call. I mean, he had his best games at left tackle. Maybe that's just his natural position, but he's not going to play left tackle for this team with Colton Miller there. He looked really good run blocking as a six offensive lineman. I think some people on Twitter were asking if he could play guard. Do you think has he ever gotten any reps inside?
I don't think
In
so, but
college, he did,
in
but
college,
not in
yeah.
the
But I think
NFL.
that it's been talked about here like it's a possibility, but I've never seen it actually happen in practice. I don't think.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, tackles are always in demand, and that'd be an interesting one. With only two quarterbacks likely to be top 10 in next year's draft, I feel like the Raiders will miss out yet again. Would it be worth it to offer a mid-round pick for Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson before the trade deadline to get a young quarterback with upside on the roster for next year? From Raider Ghost 21.
Yeah, as we said, I don't think they're going to be buyers going into the deadline this year in terms of adding somebody to the roster. I also don't know with those two teams if they really would be willing to part ways with those guys. I mean, the Panthers, they've gone back to Bryce Young as a starter, so clearly they think he might be able to turn it around still. And then with Richardson, with him getting benched for Joe Flacco, I still don't think they're completely giving up on him. At least I would hope that they're not, because I feel like that's terrible, organizational malpractice, in my opinion, to pull the plug that quickly, even though he has been rough this season. So, but if either one of those guys were available at some point, whether it's now or in the off season, I think it's worth inquiring. Like, I think everybody knows, not everybody, but a lot of people probably know that I was a big Richardson guy coming out. I think his physical traits are worth taking a chance on. And so if he was available this offseason, I would inquire, particularly if they end up with, let's say the 12th overall pick or something, and it looks like they might not be able to go get a quarterback, a high end quarterback in the draft. And I think that could be something that's worth considering.
The two, I think the Raiders might be more interested in Richardson. I think the high concerns about Bryce Young that everybody has are also shared in this building. So I think I don't think the Colts are going to trade Richardson, but if they were going to, then I think the Raiders might listen or be involved in whatever talks there were. But I don't think anything happening next week as far as those two guys go.
And it seems more and more like there might be four quarterbacks drafted in the first round
Yeah,
because
there's always guys like at this point. There's always guys who fly up the last 2 months before the draft. There's always guys who. Because quarterbacks are such an iffy proposition. Like guys, come and go, and everyone wants to roll the dice and try to get a guy.
Victor's a little bit of tapping coming out of your mic. Yeah, so there's Newsheimer. I can't say his name yet. See, that's how fast these guys are rising. But he from LSU. But Dane Brugler has him as his number one quarterback. Nate Tice has him as the number one quarterback. A few other guys
Those guys are
have him
trying to
as
go viral. That's all. They're trying to get hits. Yeah, those two guys.
Yeah, like what is he the number one quarterback for? Like, I haven't watched that much LSU this season. What the fuck is he
Yeah.
doing? Let me look at
well.
this.
I
I'm about
think
to look at this Tesla.
he's the appeal is he plays quarterback the way you would in NFL, and he has arm talent, and he's extremely accurate. So um, there's that, and there's Jalen Milrow, who
That's my guy. I'm a Murrow guy.
yeah, so he could be a first round guy, and then you have Shadir Sanders, obviously, and Cam Ward. So those are the four guys that could get drafted in the first round. So I think it's becoming a little bit more attractive, but there's not really that like bona fide top five, quarterback.
Here's a good thing about that question. I guess you're saying that they may not be able to get a top two guy because whatever the Raiders. But here's the thing about Shadur Sanders. I think is a real possibility. I think Deion's going to kind of pull the Eli Manning thing. I think Eli. I mean, I think he's going to say, you know what, we're not going to Cleveland. We're not going to Carolina, and don't pick us. We won't go. So I think that's a real possibility. I think the Raiders would be a team they would want to play for. I think that'd be on the yes list for the Sanders family. So I think that'd be one thing to look at as far as the usual dread, like oh, they won't be picking high enough. But maybe this year won't matter. Maybe if you have the right connections with the Sanders family, maybe you're in a better spot than you would be normally.
There seems to be something going on there. I mean, there's like so many clips that surface that are cluing in that Sanders really wants to be a Raider. There was a clip I saw of him talking to Asia Wilson, saying that he'll see her there, like in Vegas or something like that too. So it's interesting, and Sanders does have that pull where and will I think he'd be like one of those rare examples of there'll be one of those rare examples of families that would be willing to kind of pull that move. So we'll see. I think that's a good, interesting point to watch out for. And last question from Goodfella77. Why should I watch?
Why should I watch? Because you don't want to cut the grass on Sundays. You got nothing else to do. That's why you should watch.
I think competitive losses. That's the mission at this point
There
for
you go.
most Raiders
Elegant
fans. I
tank.
think
Elegant tank.
you get to see the young guys show development. Jackson Powers Johnson, Brock Bowers, Jacorian Bennett, Trayvon Merritt. You know, you get to see Max Crosby. You see some flashes, building blocks moving forward, but they keep losing, and they get another step closer to bringing Shadur Sanders back to Vegas so he can hang out with Asia Wilson, Mark Davis, and the Aces. So, that's why you watch.
I think last year we had the same question last year, and I said you get a chance to watch, three of the best players in the league, and Max Crosby, Devontae Adams, and Josh Jacobs. So you still got one left. You still have a chance to watch Max do
Hey, you
something
got Brock
special.
Bowers now. You can put
Oh, you got
Bowers in
Brock
that.
Bowers, right? You got two guys. So you got two guys to watch, and maybe they'll see something that will be on Sports Center all night long. So maybe you have a chance to see a special player make a special play. Otherwise, you want the young guys to develop. That's what you're watching for. And like you said, I don't think losing's the worst thing. People will hate to hear that, but it's not the worst thing in the world at this point to lose games and do it in a competitive fashion.
All right, look, if you didn't stop watching the last 20 years, why would you stop now?
Exactly.
What's the difference?
It's a habit. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a drug.
Yeah, and like you said, there's young players. Brock Bowers, legitimately could be the top at its position in a few years. Young offensive line, some talent. DJ Glaze, um, Parham, JPJ. We'll see how they kind of develop. But for me, offensively, those are the guys you want to watch out for, and I think that is a positive. Obviously, they're kind of you got the brain farts. They're young players, but they got the high highs with those guys. Tyree Wilson, I think he's improving, but it's not a for sure thing. He's going to make that leap, but you see those flashes, and you hope to see more. Jacorian Bennett is another young guy playing well. So there's some young guys to watch out for.
I love it, man.
Yeah,
Still
man.
positive. Watch the strides that Luke Getsy makes his play calling, how he gets better as the year goes on. See, it's all positivity.
I
All
was, I
right,
was
yeah,
saying
we'll go with
I'm
that.
gonna get dunked on because I watched Goodfellas for the first time this past weekend, man. That's why I picked this question.
Wow.
Oh,
First
wow.
time ever?
Yeah.
Wow. It was
I've
pretty
seen
great,
it.
huh?
I basically knew the movie just because all the scenes are all famous
Right,
memes at this point.
right.
But it was my first time sitting down start to finish. And shit was pretty
There you
great,
go.
man.
Yeah.
I
What
like it,
would you
man.
give out of 10?
Give it a strong 9 out of 10, I think. Yeah,
There you
strong
go.
9.
You seen Godfather?
Yeah, I saw that this summer. So it wasn't
Oh, wow.
wasn't that long ago.
What's next on the Catch Up the Classics movie tour for Tashan
Godfather
Reed?
2?
I saw that. Saving Private Ryan, I think, is next up.
Oh,
All right.
wow.
Well, look at you.
Going through
Knocking
some
them out.
classics,
I like
man.
it. I like it.
I gotta watch those on Fridays and Saturdays to get ready for what we gotta watch on Sundays. That's how it works out.
I
Yeah,
like it, man. I like it.
watch Saving Private Ryan. That's how Joe Burrow is going to be like against this Raiders defense. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
I don't know what that meant.
I don't know what that means currently,
I
but
don't know what
I
that
guess I'll
meant,
find
Brian.
out after I
You'll know what I
watch.
mean when you see the first
Don't
scene.
spoil it. You haven't seen
You
the
know what I
movie
mean
yet.
when you see the
Okay.
first
Stop.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We will be live after the game. We'll see if the Raiders can pull it off against a bad Bengals defense. There's a chance. We all picked them to lose, so you got a little good mojo going on. So we'll see if they can pull it off against the Bengals and Joe Burrow. And yeah, catch you guys live after the game.
All
All
right,
right,
man.
y'all. Happy
Adios.
Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.